Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Elena. Thank you so much for tuning in. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about being the black sheep of the family or the scapegoat of the family. And I think I made a video on this before, but this is more like a deeper dive because I started thinking more about it because I like to kind of understand things from different perspectives, and I thought maybe my perspective might help those who have had to play that role in their own family dynamic. Because I find with a lot of programs, when we have to kind of develop these belief systems in order to survive, sometimes we had to deal with it when we are born. So it's almost like we don't know any different. And because we don't know any different, or maybe we sense it or we see it and we heal as much as we can to kind of stop that pattern from happening in our lives, I believe sometimes that even though we believe we've healed from it, because that pattern is so deeply ingrained, like it can be within our DNA, within our energy fields, to which we don't even realize that it's in there still. And so for me, I wanted to kind of talk about it and share my perspective, because maybe my perspective might kind of help people with more clarity on this, because there's nothing more annoying than thinking that you're done healing some sort of traumatic wound in your life, and then you keep experiencing it on different levels with different people in different situations in different periods of your life. It wouldn't matter if you went no contact with your family, it just seems to proliferate in your life. Even if you're forgiving, even if you keep your heart open, even if you're focusing on your joys, this thing just keeps coming up and creeping up, and I just want to know what's happening there, right? So when we're children of a narcissistic family household, or again, mind you, I'm not a psychologist. I don't know all the details of that. All I know is from just my experience and observation. And it's really about growing up in a space where I feel like maybe there's something about that child that was born that had an immense amount of light to them, in terms where it, you know, like when you meet someone and they have so much wisdom, so much clarity, there's something about them where they're just so pure in their energy, where when you're around them, you automatically feel like they can see right through you. And this is not just like being like a baby, just being born. I'm talking about like there are people on this planet who have done so much integration work in terms of healing their shadows. And they are so aware, they are so connected, for me, to like the angelic realm, the spirit realm, like the healers, the ascended masters. If you've ever come across someone that is like that, you will know. Because when you see them, they almost, without meaning to, they trigger this thing inside of you, because you feel so seen and so exposed, in terms of like, you are aware that they are aware of your shadows. But the thing is that they don't judge you. You judge yourself. And when you judge yourself, many times people who judge themselves, because these shadows come up, they're being illuminated by the light of this being, they tend to project and try to dim that person or attack that person, instead of doing the inner work to realize that these shadows are triggering me, these things are being brought up to my surface, for me to see. Now I get to choose how I'm going to heal and move on from that, or with that. And so for me, when I kind of see it from that type of perspective, there are some people that are born in this world where they know that their energy is going to trigger those around. And many times the people, your caretakers, just didn't have the emotional maturity, or they didn't even know what that was. They had no idea what it was, right? So many times, instead of looking at their own shadows, because sometimes people, you know, when they're really busy, let's say they're in their own survival methods, the last thing they want to do is to look at their own shadows. They just don't have it in them, the energy to do that. They're just so busy trying to survive, and maybe they're still running through a lot of stress and anxiety. Maybe their nervous system is still incredibly dysregulated. Like they just don't have the emotional maturity to kind of recognize it for what it is, which is that this being is reflecting light to the point where you're seeing aspects of yourself, these shadows that you have been ignoring. And as a child, these people around you who are supposed to be doing the work, the emotional work to heal those things, instead of that, the easiest method for them to do is to kind of blame and shift and be in denial and project onto that person, because that person is illuminating things that they don't want to see in themselves, right? So what happens then? If you are that child and you grow up in a household that is like that, because you are trying to survive, and in a family unit, you survive by having people around you. If you were by yourself, you would die, right? Like you need people around you as you're growing up. And they provide food, shelter. Even if it's dysfunctional, you need people around you. So in a way to adapt, in a way to survive for yourself, maybe you tended to blame yourself. If everybody doesn't want to take responsibility for their behavior, and they keep telling you that you are the problem, and no matter where you look, they keep telling you that you are the issue, you are the problem, you start to believe that you are the problem. You start to think that you're not worthy enough, or there's some sort of defect about you, or there's something not good enough about you. So you automatically have this type of belief system that there's something fundamentally wrong with you, even though it's so opposite of what's the truth of what's happening. Another thing that can happen is when they project all that pain onto you. What you're noticing with the people around you is that they're not taking responsibility for their behavior or their healing. And what you're doing essentially, because everything manifests in a different way, is when you see that, you're like, okay, because they're not taking any responsibility and it's causing me so much pain and it's causing other people so much pain, and I can see that and I can see the dysfunction, I'm going to overcompensate and take all the responsibility. I'm going to start taking all the responsibility of other people's projections and make it on my own. And I'm going to do that because that makes me better than them, or the good person, and they are bad because they're hurting other people because they're not doing the healing work. So, and that can lead to other things too, where you're constantly looking for people who take responsibility and accountability. Like that is your safety, and which is a whole other topic in and of itself. And I feel like in those instances, you start to realize that you're holding on to other people's burdens, like the way that they're reacting, the way that they're treating you, even if it's abusive, gaslighting is abusive. You start to think that it's your responsibility, that somehow you played a role in that, and that their behavior is somehow your fault. So this is where discernment comes in, because sometimes in life where you see these spiritual gurus that say you are whatever's reflected in your reality is who you are, and you're emanating that or whatever. I want to first and foremost say that that's not true. There's people out there who they all have free will. They don't have to treat you poorly. They don't have to attack you. They don't have to smear your name. They don't have to demean your character or ruin your reputation. They don't have to make you feel so small and so insignificant in life and be abusive towards you. That is their free will choice. It doesn't matter what your vibration is, right? So there's that type of discernment that I need people to really pay attention to when it comes to this topic. You have to know whether it is a vibration that you need to kind of transmute, versus this person's just being an a-hole. This person is just using their free will to be a jerk, instead of understanding that, that's their stuff, because you can't control their behavior. You know, even if they're triggered by your light, they have a choice to work on themselves. They have a choice to ignore you. They have a choice to kind of navigate it in a different way. And if they're being abusive, they're using their free will to harm you. That's their own karma coming for them. You know what I mean? When I think about the vibration, why is it that you're always attracting people who just have so much shame and constantly deny and blame other people? They don't take accountability. What could that possibly be? Why would you attract someone like that if you had a core wound of the scapegoat child? And I think the core wound for that is that you have learned at some point in your life, nobody takes responsibility for their stuff. And because you are taking all that responsibility, you're going to meet people that will make you take the responsibility, or they'll project that you are responsible for everything. I feel like I need to pause there so you guys can rewind that and hear it again. It's like, if you are constantly feeling like you are the one responsible, then you will meet people who will take no responsibility because they will think that you are responsible and project that responsibility on you, even though it's not yours. This is kind of like the example I would give is, you know, how people, when they're stuck in situations and they feel like nothing is really shifting or changing, nobody is changing, no one's taking accountability, and you start to absorb that and you think to yourself, okay, if I shift something, if I heal something in me, if the reality that I create is part of me and my reality is something has to do with me, I have to fix something inside of me so I can change my reality. So you're amplifying that there's something wrong with you. So you're going to meet people who think that there's something wrong with you all the time. That, or you think that, you know, you are responsible for shifting the environment, shifting yourself energetically, healing whatever wound you have inside of you, even though it can be completely nothing to do with you. You have to focus on just healing yourself so that you can change your environment. So again, you're taking it all on yourself. You're blaming yourself, when other people around you should be the ones doing the work and being responsible for their own healing work and their own shit. So when you are constantly feeling like you need to shift yourself and heal yourself in order to make everything okay, what essentially are you doing vibrationally by doing that? You're literally vibrating a frequency saying that you are the problem, that you are to be blamed. You are the one that needs to fix what's going on. Like, hence why you're probably going to attract people who also agree with that. And you are getting that reflected in your reality, saying you are the problem. You are responsible. You are the one to be blamed. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what I do when I kind of sit alone for too long and start thinking a lot about vibrations. I'm sure somebody out there is going to really appreciate this. I know, like, I wish I kind of knew this, you know, when I was going through all these things, but my God, like, is that not an eye-opener? That's like a total eye-opener, right? Just because, let's say you do have a vibration that attracts people like that, that doesn't mean that they have the right to be abusive to you. Another thing that can happen too is that because you have grown up in an environment where nobody takes responsibility and it's caused pain and dysfunction and hurt, and you've observed it for yourself and other people, how painful that is, there might be a part of your brain that goes, you know what? People who don't take responsibility are bad people, and those who take responsibility are good people. So then you start to overcompensate because you don't want to be a bad person. So you want to then take more responsibility, whether you know it or not. You become the really responsible person and you take everybody's shit onto your shoulders. That, or you walk around in your world thinking that you can only be safe around people who take responsibility for their actions in lives. Because you have developed this idea that taking responsibility is a good thing and that is what you needed growing up, chances are you're only going to be seeking people who take responsibility. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, it feels as though like you might develop a sense where you will never really truly feel safe around someone unless they are someone that holds themselves accountable. Like you could never really be friends with them, and that might kind of mess up with friendships sometimes, because sometimes you got to categorize friends sometimes. I'm not the greatest with this. However, not everyone that you meet is a bad person because they don't take responsibility. You know what I mean? Like maybe they're just not wanting to deal with that stuff right now. But because of that conditioning or that belief system that, you know, if you don't take responsibility, you're a bad person, that can kind of mess up your view and perspective on certain people or like types of friendships in your life. Maybe, you know, you're putting it too much into the extreme sense where it's like this person is a good person and maybe they're not ready to own up to certain personal things that have nothing to do with you, yet you categorize it in such a way where it's like black and white, where it's like, okay, you don't take responsibility for that, that means you're not a good person. You know what I mean? And that can kind of mess up your relationships with people. So now that we have these little tidbits of information of what is possibly happening in terms of vibration, what do I do with this information? Like, how can I make it so I don't have to experience this again? Okay. And so what I'm getting is that first and foremost, you need to stop blaming yourself. You need to stop blaming yourself when things go wrong, when things happen. There's not always a reason for everything. Okay, I used to be one of those firm believers, oh my God, something happened, so that means there's something that I'm doing. I need to like figure it out and I need to shift. That is a survival mechanism to which I've adopted when I was growing up, because if nobody else is taking responsibility, someone has to, and that person was me. So, and that type of belief has perpetuated itself. So what I've learned is that, you know, if something happens and it's not good, I'm not going to automatically say it's because I did something or that I need to shift something, because I'm learning to love myself and understand that sometimes stuff happens and it's like out of your control, has nothing to do with you, right? So it could also have to do with not taking things personally as well, which is all the way down to like self-love. So I ask myself sometimes, I'm like, so why would I automatically start blaming myself for things when things go wrong? And that is because when you grew up in a household with people that don't take responsibility and no accountability, and they project and blame you for things, you start to adopt their voice and their criticism as your own. So what you need to do is you need to understand that that is not your voice. You have to understand who you are and understand what's yours and what's not. That's the most important thing, I think, in terms of dealing with this type of energy. And this also helps with understanding like what role did I play in this, if anything. And it's like, I am not gonna take responsibility for other people's actions or projections or pain or unresolved issues to which they don't even want to look at. I'm also not going to put up with projections, rude behavior, disrespect, unkindness, like just nasty, mean behavior. Because when I talk about, you know, scapegoating and like the black sheep of the family, I'm not talking about like when you meet somebody and they're not taking accountability for things. Let's say, for instance, you work with someone, okay? You work with someone and they keep forgetting something. It's not like, and when you point it out and they're just like, I never did that, and they never take responsibility for that, that is not a personal thing that affects you in your experience, right? It's annoying, but it's nothing beyond just their own insecurities. I'm talking about when you are just being yourself and minding your own business, and like people are literally finding excuses or finding ways to diminish your light, to have a smear campaign, or like when you point something out or your energy triggers them, they just don't like you. Ever meet those people where you just kind of show up and like some people just don't like you? You haven't even talked to them and they just don't like you, and it's like, what the hell? Like, what did I do? Nothing. You did nothing. If anything, your light triggers them. Something about your heart triggers them. And I'm talking about people who make it their agenda to try to make your life miserable, or like to ruin your reputation, to gaslight you, to really be abusive, because that is their way of controlling the narrative. You know what I'm saying? Like, I find black sheeps are very powerful because they are truth sayers. They are the ones that are very connected in terms of knowing what's right and what's wrong, and they are aware of things. They're self-aware. They're very honest as well. So a lot of times I find black sheeps tend to work with a movement in integrity in life. And some people, I'm telling you, some people just cannot fathom that. They cannot understand that. And when you point out things that they don't want to heal yet, instead of just doing that and healing themselves, which is an act of self-love, by the way, the fact that they don't want to do that, they're going to try to change the narrative around you, or with people around you, trying to diminish you in that way, which is incredibly abusive. Like, and this is another thing that I say, when you know you're powerful, a lot of times powerful people operate by themselves. And if you find you're around people who need to gather and convince everyone around them that you're the bad person, or like manipulate the narrative, or smear your name, or like ruin your or try to ruin your reputation, or damage your character, whatever, it's because they view themselves as powerless. Because if you're really powerful and you're confident in yourself, you don't need to do all that. You just stand in your power. That's why when people are kind of ganged up on and you're kind of like by yourself, it's because you have the most power. They perceive you as a powerful being, even though they don't want to admit it. I am on fire today, man. I am speaking my truth. I've been working with Archangel Gabriel. I didn't know this, but Archangel Gabriel is the angel. I always thought it was Archangel Michael, which is, you know, about throat chakra and speaking your truth too. But Archangel Gabriel, like, honestly, he is like he will not put up with BS. I'm telling you. And he's been working with me a lot. So I've been very vocal with what it is that I'm experiencing, and I'm very grateful for it. I'm really liking this version of me right now. I think another thing that's really important to remember is that sometimes if people are acting that way, it's not because you're supposed to fix it. It's not because you're meant to just be the illuminating factor in that, or like, just because you've kind of healed your own insecurities. Sometimes I find spirit will bring certain people in your life to kind of see a version to which they can kind of, if they want to, make the choice to be more like, right? So let's say with the black sheep wound, you had to heal a lot of your own personal insecurities and self-doubt, and maybe you're attracting a lot of insecure people. And sometimes spirit will take someone who has healed those wounds, place them on the path on those who are yet to heal it, or have an opportunity to heal it, or maybe have the same type of core wounds. They get a chance to observe how you operate, and they get to choose whether or not they want to participate or be part of that evolution in their own lives. And the thing is that because of free will, not everyone's going to choose that growth. Some people get triggered, and obviously, as we're talking about it, they choose the opposite, which they attack, and they try to make it worse for you because they're not ready. They're not ready to do the work. They're not ready to do the healing. So what I want to say is that in those moments, it is almost like a gift for you to understand that these people are not your people. They're not your people. And you are also not here to be the consistent reminder of their triggers and their wounds. Like, you're not here to just be born to trigger people. You are here to have a joyous, thriving life. And you're not meant to always be the subject of somebody's projections. And this is why it's really important to know what's yours and what's not, what you're going to put up with and what you won't put up with. Because many times our higher selves have that agreement of bringing people together for certain reasons, certain lessons to which maybe we are not able to even fully comprehend. But let's say you've done that healing work and you're so connected to your higher self that you will listen and hear your higher self easier than most people. And so when you see these types of people, maybe your job is to hear your higher self and actually vocally say to these people who are being abusive or people who are projecting and like blaming you to shut the fuck up and leave you the fuck alone. Maybe you're the type of person now to call out their BS. Maybe you're the type of person to say, hey, I don't like the way you treat me, or I don't like the way you're constantly projecting. Maybe you're the one that's going to be the person in their journey to call them out. Maybe they have been blaming other people their entire lives, and you just so happen to be the one to say, I'm not putting up with it, and calling it out for what it is, because you're connected to your divinity, you hear your spirit, and you also have done the healing work, so you know what is yours and what isn't. So these are little things that I think about in regards to this pattern. And honestly, I think what it comes down to is knowing thyself, knowing who you are, knowing your character, knowing yourself so well that nothing and no person can say anything to deter you or confuse you or to make you misaligned in terms of what you want to do in life, where you're going, what you stand for, and where your heart is. I think these types of people also trigger a wound where they're trying to confuse you, because you probably grew up in an environment, where it's confusing. You didn't know how you felt. You were so preoccupied with how other people felt and how other people saw you. So when you get to really know yourself, when you get to speak your truth and you live in authenticity and you're not afraid to be yourself, you end up becoming an unstoppable force. You end up becoming someone who is your higher self, to be quite frank. And in order to be so connected to your higher self, you operate in a space where your heart is open. So even if you know that these people are in pain and they're projecting and you can see where they're coming from, and you empathize and you have compassion for them, you're also in a space where you love yourself, so you don't put up with that BS for their projections. And if they're being disrespectful, you put a boundary. So it's a really amazing balance between your heart and your mind and spirit. It's working all together in harmony and knowing your worth in this world and knowing what you stand for, knowing who you are. And I think that's like the greatest gift in life, okay? And knowing that the past version of you shrunk yourself because it was just so overwhelming having to deal with such negative projections, to get to a point where it's like, that it has nothing to do with you. And not only that, you have compassion for that person. You have compassion for that person. You're not going to put up with shit. You're not a doormat. But you have compassion for them. That shows how far you've grown. And you know what? Sometimes these people, they come into our lives to show us who we could have been had we not have done the work on ourselves. And they come into our lives to show us how much growth we have had in our life. And we get to see that through the contrast. And we can pat ourselves on the back and say, you know what? You did good. You could have been like them. Because my God, age doesn't matter. Some people are the same way no matter how old they are. Some people be projecting in their 70s and 80s. Thank God you're not like that. And you should be incredibly proud of yourself. And, and I know this journey is difficult because sometimes you're by yourself, and other people, even if you're around other people don't truly get what you've gone through. They will never truly understand the depths of the crap you've gone through. But you know what? I'm here to tell you that I am proud of you and that I love you. And I think you're doing an amazing job, and that you're not alone, and that you should be so proud of yourself. And all the joys that come into your life, all the blessings and all the abundance that comes into your life, I want you to know that you are deserving and you have earned all of that. And do not shy away from these things that come into your life, because the work that you've done does not go unnoticed. It is noticed by God. It is noticed by the universe. It is noticed by people who really get it, who have been part of that journey with you, even though they haven't really been in your life, you know? I want you to know that when blessings come into your life, and they will come into your life because of the work that you've done, I want you to know that you are deserving of it all. You are worthy of it all. It is a gift. It is a gift for you. Anyways, thank you for tuning in. I hope this video resonates with you, and thank you. Thank you for being here, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye.